I've had some great questions lately from viewers about how I manage water on the trail. So for those of you who've asked and anybody else who's curious, this video is for you. I'm standing here beside a beautiful creek, but if you've backpacked much, especially on dry trails, you know that creeks like this are kind of hard to find. Hello, birdies. I'm sure that you have all heard the really tragic tales of folks who start out on a trip not knowing what the terrain's going to be like, not knowing how much heat to expect, not carrying enough water, and sometimes that ends with devastating consequences. Some of the consequences of not having enough water are things like heat exhaustion and fatigue. You might end up with headaches, dizziness, that sort of thing. You definitely do not want to get into that kind of situation. It's better to just keep your body hydrated so that you don't end up kind of dipping down into that dehydration status that's a little bit hard to recover from. In fact, you may not realize this, but if you are dehydrated, it can take up to 2 days to recover. So if you start getting those headaches, the aches and pains, that fatigue, then you might be either slowed down for a considerable amount of time or even end up having to get off the trail, which actually happened to a friend of mine that I was hiking with. She just wasn't drinking enough, and unfortunately that turned out to be the end of her hike. Rather than trying to just go a couple miles and then drink a whole bunch and then go a couple miles more and drink a whole bunch more. It's much more important to drink on a consistent basis. So how much water should you be drinking to stay healthy while you're hiking? Well, actually, there's no hard and fast rule for that. You might hear a lot of different guidelines from different people, you know, a gallon every so often or so many liters per mile. But really, you have to look at your own physical conditioning, how well your body actually uses the hydration. If you're not used to being hydrated, you're not going to process the water as well as if you're consistently hydrating. Other factors include the temperatures that you're hiking in, what you're wearing, how much you're sweating, all of those kinds of things. So it really takes some practice to determine the right amount of water to carry. And it's better to carry a little bit more than not enough. So err on the side of caution if you're not sure how much water you need. Personally, I drink water all the time while I'm hiking. I had to develop some kind of creative ways to make that a habit, particularly when I started out hiking on the Appalachian Trail and I was not an experienced backpacker at that time. I found that I wouldn't necessarily drink unless it was really easy for me to drink. Even when I stopped to admire a view and think, oh wow, that's beautiful, I wouldn't bother pulling the water bottle out of my pocket and taking a drink. So I came up with a system where I had the water bottle and then a hydration hose over my shoulder where I could drink. And I invented a little drinking game where every time I stopped and said, that's gorgeous, or that's beautiful, or I love that view, I had to take a sip. And that developed the habit of just drinking on a very consistent basis that worked well for me. You might find there are other things that work for you in terms of reminding you to drink on a regular basis, but having some kind of a system is a really good way to develop that habit in the first place. And once you have it ingrained in your hiking style, then it's going to become easier and easier for you to do. My recent hike on the Tahoe Rim Trail was pretty hot. In fact, early on, when I started at Spooner Summit on the west side of the lake, there were some really long water carries, like 14-mile water carries. And it was funny because I met another hiker who was really concerned about not being able to dry camp. And I've actually learned to really enjoy dry camping because it's beautiful to be by a body of water, a waterfall, a creek, to hear the sounds at night. Love that, but you also get a lot more humidity and condensation in your tent and those kinds of things. And if you're in a dry area, you are more likely to have fewer people around, fewer problems with bears because they're not acclimated to the area or expecting campers with food to be close by. So there's a couple advantages, and my trick for dry camping is basically to calculate how much water I'm going to need for that long carry and the dry overnight by considering the terrain and the temperatures of where I've been hiking and what I expect it's going to be like for the rest of the day, the area where I'm going to be camping and what I'm going to need, like water for dinner, water to drink in the evening, usually maybe as much as half a liter, and coffee in the morning, always a must, and what I need to get to the next water source once I start hiking again. Very often for me, that total is about 2 liters of water. Sometimes if it's a really long, dry stretch, then I might need 3 or even 4 liters, but rarely have I had to carry more than that. We're going to stop and camel up and get some water to go. In addition to hydrating even before your hike and then making sure that you're drinking early and often, there are a couple other things that you can do to make sure that your body has enough water. One is to keep an eye on the color of your urine. If it's a clear or straw color, that means that you are very well hydrated. If it's starting to get darker or even brownish, you've got a problem. When I ended up with rhabdo on the Colorado Trail, one of my clues was that my urine was almost like dark tea color, which is really unusual and abnormal. And when I talked to the doctor about it, she did say that hydration was a factor in getting that condition. If you want to know more about what happened, you can see that video up above right here. And I'm drinking, as you can tell, staying hydrated. So definitely keep an eye on your urine and make sure that it's not getting too dark and telling you that you should be drinking more. Another thing that you can do to make sure that your body is using the hydration that you put in it effectively is to add electrolytes to your water. And there are lots of brands out there now. You've got so many to choose from that it's pretty easy to do some testing and find one that you really like. 𝐒𝐲 is one you can buy just in liquid format. It's easy, it's portable. You can pick it up in the grocery store, not too expensive. Nuun tablets are popular, but they don't always fit in a smart water bottle without being broken, but putting them into a Gatorade bottle with a wider mouth would be just fine. I like liquid IV, and I've also recently tried 𝐸. Those are a couple of other options for you. And of course, there's some that are advertised heavily on YouTube that I'm sure you've seen. I've never tried them, so I can't comment on whether those are good or not, but you've got lots of options. So I would encourage you to go ahead and try a few before you go out on the trail, and then take some with you so that you can make sure that you're supplementing your water and allowing your body to process it effectively, and also replacing sodium and other minerals that your body loses as you're hiking and sweating. Do be a little wary though of the ones that have caffeine. Some people like those, but of course caffeine has a tendency to dehydrate your body. Ironically, it's a little warmer than I expected this morning. I have to drink was iced coffee, now it's just plain lukewarm coffee. So I'm going to retreat to my van and share with you some of my water storage techniques. Because I had to shed a layer and put up my hair because it was getting really hot really fast, and I wasn't counting on that. So it happens even on a day hike. So let's talk about water storage. What you carry your water in is important. If you carry something like a Nalgene bottle, which is great, they're durable, they're indestructible, but they're also heavy and they don't have a lot of give to them. So if you want to pack them up without water, you're still going to be taking up a lot of space. So I carry 2 of these, one in each of the pockets on my backpack. And then I also have a smaller bottle that I carry in my shoulder strap pocket. And this one, I've modified the straw system that I've used in the past. I used to have the straw that would come from the bottle in my pocket down here, up over my shoulder and around to my mouth. And being the gram weenie that I am, I wanted to trim a little bit of weight by not having as much hose. But I also wanted to have the bottle just right in front of me where I could literally just grab and drink as I hike. So this is a DIY system. You can see how I created it up here in my hydration hacks video. Really easy system for drinking on the go and for drinking consistently. Another option would be a Gatorade bottle. The one that I've got my coffee in this morning has just a little twist lid that's easy to open and close. You could probably even do it with your mouth if you wanted to while you're hiking, but this also fits in the pocket on my chest strap. So with 2 of these, and one of these, this is 0.75 liters. Yeah, actually this is 700 milliliters, and these are each a liter. That's almost 3 liters of water carry capacity that I have, but sometimes you need a little bit more than that. And I actually use my filter bag. So my favorite filter right now is the Be Free filter by Katadyn or Katahdin. This is a liter bag. You can also get a 0.6 liter version, but I love the bag because it's very durable and it just folds up and fits in my pack nice and easily, so I don't have to worry about something rigid. Sawyer also makes some really popular water filters. There's the regular Sawyer Squeeze, the Sawyer Micro, the Sawyer Mini, and they're all about the same shape. This is the Micro, and I've also got the larger one. I would recommend, just from past experience and talking with other hikers, just going with the larger version because it seems to filter the best without getting clogged as often. And these just attach on a water bottle like this, so you can filter your water from one of these, or a lot of thru hikers actually put it on the top and just drink out of it that way. With these filters, you can actually use a syringe that comes with it and squirt water right through here to clean the filter. You can also clean a Be Free filter very easily. You just take it, and it's a very open system. Like, there's a lot of opportunity for both gunk to get in and also to clean it out. So you can just either soak it in some warm water or just swirl it in some warm water and then flush it real well. You don't want to use boiling hot water. Ideally not chemicals, although you could use a little bit of vinegar in the water if you feel like it's super silty. But both of these are easily cleaned in the field, so they're good options. I like this one because it is lighter, and this one comes with kind of hard, rigid plastic bags. They don't stretch, and so they're prone to breaking if you squeeze too hard. And you can't buy the filter without the bag. So to me, that's a little bit wasteful. For this system, you can initially buy it with the bag, and then you can just replace this filter whenever it gets too clogged to use. Both of these types of filters will last for about 1,000 liters. And of course, that depends on the quality of the water that you're filtering. If it's really gunky, then you're going to get clogged more frequently and you're going to have to replace the filter more often. There is one thing that you can do if the water is murky or has a lot of particulate in it, and that is to pre-filter it using a bandana. You can just take that bandana and put it over the top of the bottle. You could use a rubber band or something to keep it on there and scoop your water that way. Or you could use 2 bottles, put the dirty water in with the bandana on top, and then pour it into the filter bag and then filter it from there. It's better to pre-filter it and get the big particulates out and then filter it, rather than trying to filter it a second time, because all those particulates are going to end up in your filter and slow it down and gunk it up, which is not ideal. Now, if you have a Sawyer filter and you don't love the bags, or if you've got a Be-Free and you want a bigger storage bag than the 1 liter that they have available, you could look at the 𝐂𝐻 bags. This is a 2-liter bag that fits the Be-Free filter, and I have used this on some hikes, and they make a similar one that fits the Sawyer. It's that size thread, so these match up. And you could even create a gravity system if you're not inclined to filter water in camp. That's not a favorite activity of some people, but you can take one of these bags and your Sawyer filter and then your water bottle and just connect it all together using these little blue couplers that you can buy very inexpensively, and hang it from a tree, and it will filter your water while you're doing other camp chores, which I used to do on the AT, and it worked out really, really well. These days I tend to just filter my water as I go, partly because it's so easy to do 1 liter at a time through this, and this filter is screaming fast when you first buy it. I'll put the actual flow rate down below, the initial flow rate, but it is super, super fast, and it does decline over time. That's why you want to rinse it out periodically and make sure it's not getting too gunked up, but it's a screaming fast filter. It takes a lot less effort than I find with the Sawyer, so this has become my go-to choice for a water filter. There are lots of other filtration systems out there on the market, and you may find that there's something that you like better, but those are the 2 top ones in my book, and I would recommend trying one of those if you are not sure what you should get. 𝐂𝐻 also makes a flexible water bottle, and you can find these in other places from other brands. Hydro Flask makes several different types of flexible bottles, so if you just want an extra bottle to carry with you. Now, some people, and you might be one of them, like to have a water bladder. Those come anywhere from 1 liter up to 3 liters or so that will fit in a backpack. They are made by Osprey and Gregory and Camelback and other providers. My issue with those is, number one, they can get kind of icky inside, and that you can buy Bottle Bright and some other chemical cleaners to clean them out. You can rinse them out on the trail and let them dry out if you need to kind of prevent some of that ick if you're out for weeks at a time. I personally don't like having that amount of water inside my pack in case it leaks, and that often happens, and then your gear is all wet if you don't have the bladder outside of a pack cover that's going to protect your gear. So I like the ease of these bottles. That's personal preference. A lot of thru hikers use this option, but some people do prefer the bladder, so that's a choice for you if you feel like you want to carry more water in one container, or perhaps do a gravity feed at night and then carry your water during the day. However, water weighs 2.2 pounds per liter, so it is not a light thing, and that is part of the reason that you don't want to carry more water than necessary for a hike. You also do not want to run out of water on a hike. That happened to me on the Colorado Trail coming down from Lake Ann Pass, and it was really scary because I knew I had a very long downhill hike before I could get to a water source, and I was hot and thirsty and really unhappy. As you can see, I've got a long, long way to go before I get to water, and I'm thirsty. The path you see is the path I'm taking. So now I have adopted the approach where I always make sure that I save maybe 1/4 of a liter until I get to my water source, or at least until I get reliable data from a hiker coming the other way that water source is viable, because I don't want to get to a water source and find out that it is not where I expected it to be, or that it's gone dry, or that the water is just super, super nasty. So I always carry a little bit of extra water, and then when I get to the water source, I finish that water, or I might even taste the fresh water if it's coming out of a beautiful alpine spring. Then I might prefer that nice ice cold fresh water to water that I picked up from a stream or a pond somewhere else. If you are going to get water from a pond, one tip for making sure that it's clean water is to just wade a little bit out from the bank if you can, if the drop off is not too steep, to get a little bit cleaner water. Let the silt settle, or if it looks like it's clean and the water is moving, you could just reach in from the bank and fill up your bottle without actually disturbing the bottom of the lake or of the stream. Always look for flowing water. If you can get flowing water, that's better than water that has been sitting. That doesn't mean that you can't drink water that's been sitting, but the more dicey your water is, the more careful you want to be. One thing I carry to make sure that I'm not going to get sick is these little aqua tabs. They're little tiny ones, and if you look at different types of purifying tablets, some take up to 4 hours. These take a lot less than that. So they act pretty quickly, and I don't have to sit around if I'm really thirsty and wait for 4 hours for my water to be clean. Other options are iodine, or even put a drop of bleach in your water bottle to kill anything that might be remaining after you have filtered the water. Don't put it in before you filter the water, because that could affect your filter, but put it in after for an extra safety measure. A lot of times people don't want cow water. There was a big trough of cow water on the Colorado Trail that I had to drink from. That is a stock tank. And these are the cows who aren't too happy that I'm going to share their water. So just bear that in mind if you're doing long through hikes. So you're probably going to find some places where the water is not what you would want. Just as long as you've got the right systems to make sure that your water is treated, then that helps tremendously. Technically not dry, but who'd want to drink that? Now, if you're going to dry camp, or if you've got a really long water carry and you have a bag like this, you can hang it from a carabiner and put it on the back of your pack. But it's a fact that water sloshes around, right? It just moves with gravity. So it's a little bit difficult to attach this to your pack and just have it flapping. If you've got straps on your pack where you can like batten it down a little bit, then that's going to help keep it more comfortable for you. But also the extra weight of the water, if it's the furthest thing away from your body, it's going to be pulling on you as you move. And you also want to be mindful of not putting too much water on one side or the other of your pack, because you're going to be off balance and your pack is going to get a little bit more uncomfortable. Usually I keep my electrolytes in this bottle that I'm drinking off my shoulder strap, and then I can have 2 bottles of clean water. Instead of having one empty and one full, I will balance them out. So if I'm only carrying a liter of water, I'll have a ½ liter in each so that my pack is more balanced and I'm more comfortable as I hike. A couple of other tips for managing your water and your water consumption along the trail is, if you are at a wet campsite and you have access to water, drink as much as you can before you go to bed in the evening. Earlier is better, obviously, because you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and have to go to the bathroom over and over again. But that does give your body a chance to absorb the water so that you're more hydrated when you wake up in the morning. Now, if waking up at night and going to the bathroom is not your thing, then just drink as much as you can when you wake up in the morning before you start hiking, and then fill up your water bottles. A couple other tips for staying hydrated are to, number 1, avoid alcohol and caffeine if you can. I don't tend to drink much at all on the trail, even though I do enjoy a cocktail or a beer or something in the evening at home. I typically only have drinks when I go into town, and that way I am pretty much alcohol free while I'm hiking. I find that it helps me to process the water that I'm drinking in a little bit better. And I do have coffee in the morning with caffeine, but I don't drink caffeine throughout the day. Oh, good morning. That's my 1 dose of caffeine to get me up and going, but after that I don't use caffeine the rest of the day. And finally, be mindful that it is possible to be overhydrated, and you can be sick if you drink too much. So make sure that you're getting the right amount of fluids in your body, but not overhydrating to the point where you either feel bloated or you feel sick. Just drink consistently, a little bit at a time. That allows your body to process the fluids, to get them into your cells, and to keep you hydrated and healthy without overdoing it. If you do find yourself in a very dry patch, or you find out that you've run out of water, don't be afraid to tell another hiker that you need some water until you can get to the next source. I actually was very lucky on the Tahoe Rim Trail when I was going into Desolation Wilderness. I thought I carried a lot of water, and I drank a whole bunch of water at Echo Chalet before I even entered the Desolation Wilderness. It was so hot and exposed on that trail that I was getting concerned about how much water I would have by the time I got to a lake or to camp. And another hiker came the other way, and as we started chatting, he asked me, he says, "Do you have enough water?" And I was like, "Well, I've got this much. I think I might be okay, but I'm not sure." And he was so kind. He said, "You know what? I'm getting out of Desolation Wilderness and I'm getting off the trail, so let me give you some of my water." And his water actually had electrolytes in it. So I let him fill up a bottle for me, and I was super appreciative of that. Now, that's not something that you can count on, but certainly do not be afraid to ask for help from other hikers if you do need it. Oh my God, we just found a water cache. Isn't that sweet? Yay. Well, as luck would have it, I just saw a woman toting a big heavy backpack up the trail. I said, "Are you through hiking, or maybe are you trail angeling?" And she said, "I'm trail angeling." I was like, "Oh, thank God." She's the one that left the water at the tree. Hikers are a friendly bunch, and from my experience, they pretty much always want to help other hikers and make sure that everybody's happy and healthy on the trail, and that's what I want for you as well. I look forward to seeing you here again next time. The Sawyer Michael. Oh. Let's try that again.